So we had about a week worth of 60-degree temperatures in the daytime and then maybe down in the 40s in the evening. So I was only running the stove once a day during that period, just kind of knocked the chill off. When I woke up, I was using this, what I call punky wood. You cut a tree up and it's kind of rotted. It doesn't burn as hot, but we're starting to get chilly again. So this is going to be the second time I've started this wood stove today. So I thought I'd start the wood stove. I wanted to talk to you a little bit about the wood stove as I get started in this video. As you can see, I got my wood already laid out. I have 3 layers of firewood here. I've got what I'm going to call north and south and east and west. So down at the bottom, I got it north and south. And the 2 logs straddle the center here where the air comes in. Now, in the instruction says the air, that is the main air tube, air port, but I don't know how it's the main airport. It's literally just the size of maybe a writing pen head. It's very small how much air comes into that, but it's actually pretty significant. You can see a lot of air being drawn into it and blowing them flames. The majority of the air comes up from these air tubes. Don't know how well you're going to be able to see. I don't even know if you can see the air tubes, but these air tubes have dozens of holes in it, and the air draws in that. That's the secondary burn area. So you have a primary burn down here, and then when the smoke hits those air tubes, secondary burn takes place. It burns that smoke. So I've got the 2 straddling the primary air tube, even though I think it's like the secondary air tube. And then I have 2 longer pieces of wood. So the ones on the bottom are fairly short, 2 hands length. The one on the center row, there's actually 2. There's one in the back and one in the front. They're about double the size of that one I just showed you. And then I have 2 more on top. That's just how I lay it out. Depends on your wood stove, how you would lay it out. The instructions specifically say you're not supposed to put any type of base down on the bottom of it. I would really like to have some sort of base, but since it said don't do it, then I don't do it. So I use wood as my base. The problem with having that wood down there at the base, sometimes it doesn't burn very thoroughly. After all the wood up here is burned out, I come in there with the shovel and I kind of scoop those 2 pieces up so they kind of lay on top of the coals, and then I kind of get another fire going. Then I put kindling down here in between the 2 base pieces. Kindling is just another piece of this wood that I've split up into smaller pieces, and it's oak. The instructions said you can use newspaper down here as well. You can use grocery bags, but what you can't use is that newspaper that has that film on it. It's kind of like a wax or whatever it is. Usually comes with the coupon package area that can cause creosote. A lot of people don't like to use a torch. I've learned from the comments section. The torch isn't that terrible. I've got Carolyn used to using it. She'll go down and burn the trash with it now. Oh, she'll use it for this as well. And I just hold it on that kindling for a few minutes. Some kindling takes a little bit longer than others for some reason, not sure. The other thing that I've noticed is the spacing in between the 2 pieces, the 2 center pieces, have to be fairly spread out when you're lighting it. Now, here's the thing. Once it's lit, you're going to want those 2 pieces a little bit closer together. And the reason you want it closer together is because the heat from each log burns the other log. When they're spread out, you don't get any heat from this log to the back log and no heat from the back log to this log, so the flame kind of dies down. But if you don't have it spread out while you're trying to start it, the flames won't come up in between it and it'll never light. It just takes forever. It just won't light. So it's a little bit of things you got to learn as you're going along on how to light the wood stove quickly. Now, you'll start to see this smoke rolling. The chimney has to be warm for this smoke to start going up there. Of course, these wood stoves don't produce a lot of smoke once you get it rolling and hot. But that chimney's got to be hot. What happens is you actually create a barrier with that cold chimney. As the heat rises from the fire, it starts to cool off in the chimney. As it cools off, it just stops. And so it literally creates its own plug inside the chimney. That cold air holds it down, and the hot air can't rise up. So you gotta get that chimney hot. Once it's hot, then that's how the air starts to draw in. Has nothing to do with anything else. Everybody has all these theories, but the reason the flame grows is it's pulling air up. It's like a siphon. If you want to think about like how you used to siphon a hose, where it would pull the liquid down. Well, this one's pulling the heat up. I can shut off the torch now. And then what I do is I just kind of shut the door. It doesn't matter how much. If you shut it too much, as the draw starts to pick up steam, energy and get going fast, you'll start to see that air just, and it really starts to blow those flames around. So I actually keep it a pretty good space, maybe 2 fingers width. That way it's not blowing those flames all the way around. But however you want to do it, I don't think it makes a big difference. When I was a kid, we had wood stoves. I always remember being really cold with the wood stoves. But this wood stove, I've not been cold. Now, I would attribute some of that to living in a tiny house. There's just not a lot to heat. But this wood stove's quite phenomenal. I know I've made a lot of videos about this, but I keep watching videos of people doing it wrong, teaching you how to do it wrong. There's only one way to do it, and I'll tell you which way that is. Read the instructions. Keep watching these YouTubers, these big YouTubers, talking about living off grid, and they're just thumping their chest all the time. And I always see the glass dirty. So let me clarify on how to keep this clean. First, you have to burn dry firewood. Dry firewood, you take a moisture tester, split your firewood, and you test inside where you just made the split. It's gotta be 20% or less. I know people aren't doing it. I've watched these huge YouTubers, off-grid and homestead YouTubers, they'll split wood, and you know they're not drying it. I just know they're not drying it. There's no indication that they're drying it. They don't talk about it. I saw one YouTuber talk about it, but his glass was dirty. The reason your glass is getting stained up is because the smoke clings to the water. The water is now made it into a tar. It's just basically a tar. It's called creosote. And it sticks in your chimney and it becomes very flammable. And a lot of people know about that. It's very flammable. So you don't want that, but people do it anyways. Oh, just burn your wood stove hot. Every time I make this video, somebody will say, oh, just burn your wood stove hot. That's all you need to do. Okay, you're burning it hot. That doesn't mean you're preventing the creosote. That means you're literally catching the creosote on fire and it's burning out the chimney. You are creating a fire hazard in your house. It will eventually catch your house on fire. If you don't follow these instructions, you are being unsafe. I get people in the comment section all the time telling me how I'm not being safe. You don't wear safety glasses when you're doing things. Okay, that's great. Well, then stop driving vehicles. The same principle. So you tell me that I'm not being safe, but then you literally start a fire in your chimney, uncontrollable. No, these things melt. This will melt. It can't get over 500 degrees. And when you catch that on fire, I think it gets up to like 1100 degrees, it starts to melt, and then you have flames shooting up in your attic. Also, if that smoke is sticking inside your chimney, it's also sticking on your window. And there's only really one way to get it off, and it's tough. You get a wet wipe or maybe a wet sock. I use wet wipes. And you put a little ash on it, and you scrub and scrub and scrub and scrub and scrub. If you get it too thick, it takes forever to come off. It's almost impossible to get it off. Now, I do wipe this one off every day because it does get a dust on it. Not a sticky paste, a dust. Occasionally, I guess, running this punky wood, there might be a little bit of water in there. And occasionally it'll stick a little bit, but I could almost just take a dry sock. Well, sometimes I do, and I kind of scrub it off a little bit and it wipes right off. When you're watching a video, if there's any staining on the window, you know they're doing it wrong. So I'm starting to pick up some paste now. That means the chimney's nice and warm. The instructions say to let this burn with the door open for about 10 minutes. And I try to do that because if you don't, it will go out. Now, as I was saying earlier, I'm going to push this log in just a little bit closer to the back log. That way the heat from the front log can help burn the back log, and the back log heat can help burn the front log. I like to rearrange the firewood once it gets kind of burned down. You're technically not supposed to, but with us being in a tiny house, I want this to burn off and heat this wood stove up nice and hot, and then I let it sit for about 8 hours. And it keeps the house warm without a fire in there at all. This one's actually a pretty good fire. It started very nicely. The other thing I've noticed, don't know why, well, barometric pressure is what I'm kind of understanding, is when it's raining outside, it's very difficult to light the wood stove. It takes a lot of effort. It's kind of frustrating. And so the other day, a few weeks ago, it was raining probably for a week, maybe 2. I guess it was about 2 weeks. It was a constant drizzle or rain. And I was thinking, well, I guess it's about time to clean the chimney, which was kind of unusual because we hadn't had any problems with the chimney in 3 years? But it didn't seem like it wanted to light. As soon as the rain stopped, we're back to having easy starting fires. It's kind of incredible. I think I'm going to shut this a little early. I don't think it's been a full 10 minutes. Okay, see how it kind of died down? The flames darkened up. So what it's trying to do now, I don't know if you can see that in the camera, but the flames did darken. They were real bright orange, and now they're kind of a darker orange. There's actually quite a bit of blue in that. What it is that smoke. As soon as I shut the door, it wasn't getting the oxygen it was. So some of the flames died off, and it started smoking. When it started smoking, it hit that burner, the reburner up there, and it turned blue. It is discouraging to me for some reason to watch so many YouTube videos about wood stoves, and so many people get it wrong. I was watching this YouTuber the other day, I think they're called Ashley wood stoves. I think it is the after brand of this one. This is a Wood Pro. They went out of business. I think they became Ashley. Don't quote me on that. I could be wrong, but that's what I'm thinking has happened. So if I ever want to have to replace one, I'm definitely looking at the Ashley. So he's got this Ashley. He's doing a very good job explaining how to start the wood stove. He has the kindling, and he used grocery bags to start it. And he did everything correctly. He even used the torch. So he had the kindling in there. I don't think he laid out his logs like I did. I think he just laid out the kindling, and I think what he was going to do, I stopped watching the video, so I didn't finish it. And he was going to lay the logs on top of the kindling, which is fine. Every wood stove probably starts a little different. I just find this easiest for me. He starts to get this thing going, and he lets you watch the fire for a little bit, and he goes and does something else and comes back and explains it a little bit more and leaves and comes back. And then he says something that it drives me crazy. He says, if you don't have kiln dried oak, well, first of all, I don't have kiln dried. Mine dried for 3 years. So I don't need to kiln dry it. I suppose if you live in a city and you don't have storage area to dry your firewood for 3 years, then you could get kiln dried. But that's going to cost a fortune. And at what point does wood stoves no longer become cost effective? Just go buy propane. My mentality on wood stoves is it should be pretty free heat, or as free as possible. Like I said, for 15 years of firewood, in a previous video, like I said, we spent $300. We spent, I guess it was $350. I think we spent $200 on a load of wood, 1 quart of wood. That was the first year when we were here. We were trying to find dry firewood. We were out getting firewood one time, and we got stuck, and we had to pay for a tow truck. So $200 and $150 for the tow truck for 15 years of firewood. So that's very reasonable. Most people spend $300 a month on, I don't know if most people, but a lot of people spend $300 a month on heating their homes. So I feel like we came under cost quite a bit. But if you're buying kiln-dried firewood, that just seems unreasonable to me. I mean, you go to a campground here in Missouri State Park, and they charge you like $15 for like 4 logs. That's kiln-dried firewood. Then he sits down and he starts to explain to us that if you don't have kiln-dried firewood where you can make kindling, that you can start storing your home projects. So if you made a shed, or you've built something, or made a bench, keep that pine around and you can use it for kindling. I've made too many videos about pine. Evergreen trees have sap in them that do not dry. Yeah, the sap may get hard on the outside, but on the inside it's still wet. The instructions specifically say don't use evergreens. You got to use hardwood. The first year we were here, the first spring, you know, we got through the winter, we're starting to run into spring, and we don't have any dry firewood, so I'm just scrounging around looking for something. And I saw a bunch of branches of cedar tree. And I thought, what would it hurt to just run it one time, just to kind of knock the chill off this morning? Because it would have taken forever to light that wet firewood. And within no longer than 5 minutes, that glass was completely stained up. You couldn't see the fire. The creosote was so bad that first year, it was dripping on the roof in clumps of gooey tar. And I'd step on it when I was up there trying to clean the chimney and drag it into the house. It was a mess. So follow the instructions. This is an amazing piece of technology. I can't stress that enough. But if you're not using it right, it's not doing you any good. You're wasting a ton of firewood. You're wasting a ton of money. So if you'll click this up next box, it'll take you to a video where I was talking about off-grid doesn't have to be hard. So I hope I can inspire you to stay warm when you live in your dreams. Thanks for watching.